I don't think it's likely, but I won't put a percentage on it, that anyone will be sent to Rwanda anytime soon.
The Home Secretary says illegal migrants could be sent to Rwanda by the summer, hailing her visit as proof the country is clearly ready. Suella Braverman has been in the capital, Kigali, taking a look at the housing where she hopes migrants will be staying in just a few months' time. But the government does also acknowledge that the schedule depends on pending legal battles. The Times' Home Affairs editor, Matt Dathan, has been with the Home Secretary and says she's optimistic.
She's confident that if the Court of Appeal came back next month, we're expecting the Court of Appeal to rule on the Rwanda case, and says that the government's policy is lawful, upholds that High Court decision, and then says there's no case in law to appeal it further to the Supreme Court. The Home Office are confident that that will give them the leeway to put flights on this summer. So we're looking at June, I think, is the kind of realistic goal.
Well, joining us now is Rosa Freedman, who is Professor of Law, Conflict and Global Development and a member of the UN Civil Society Advisory Board. She's also Special Advisor to the government's International Development Select Committee. Good morning, Rosa. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning.
So quite a tight timeline here, really, is the intention of Suella Braverman. The Court of Appeal is currently determining whether the Home Secretary can go ahead with her plans. How significant is that?
I mean, the Court of Appeal is ruling on aspects of the High Court judgment, which came out a few months ago, and said very clearly that the scheme itself is lawful, according to the High Court, but that individuals had been unfairly treated. The Court of Appeal is looking at a range of aspects of that judgment. It's looking at whether the Home Secretary carried out a sufficient examination of Rwanda's asylum system. It's looking at whether the Home Secretary had the correct information to be able to determine whether or not individual asylum seekers would face deportation to third countries from Rwanda, where they would face persecution or torture, which goes against the Refugee Convention. And it's looking at whether the scheme generally breaches the UK obligations under the Refugee Convention, which the UN High Commissioner for Refugees last summer stated very clearly that it thought that the UK would be in breach of the Refugee Convention if it went ahead with this scheme. Now, no one knows which way the Court of Appeal will rule, but even if it rules in favour wholly of the government, there will still be the opportunity for this to be appealed up to the Supreme Court, which could take quite some time. And even if that is not successful, it could again be appealed up to the European Court on Human Rights. So it's looking quite unlikely that the scheme will actually start in the summer. That would be, for the Home Secretary, the best case scenario. But for the interest of justice, probably not.
Suella Braverman's indicated the UK could be prepared to leave the European Convention on Human Rights if European judges block the legislation. Again, this drags out the timeline, but how significant would that be? Do you believe that she'd be prepared to do that, to get this across the line?
It is very, very rare for any country to leave any human rights convention. Recently, Russia left the Council of Europe and withdrew from the European Convention of Human Rights. I don't think that the UK wants to be in the same boat as a country like Russia. And obviously, these are very different circumstances. But it takes a country becoming a significantly pariah state for it to withdraw from a human rights convention. And I think that it would be very damaging to this country altogether.
Yeah, and the expansion of the deal to include any migrant who arrives illegally, regardless, so this could include people who've been trafficked, etc. Does that affect the timeline?
Well, first of all, I think the language has changed significantly over the last few years. The former UN Special Rapporteur on the human rights of migrants made it clear that no migrant is illegal. They may arrive irregularly, but no human being can be illegal. Secondly, people who are arriving who have been trafficked or who are claiming asylum are certainly not doing anything unlawful. Those who have been trafficked, it is against their will. And those who are claiming asylum, they're doing this wholly lawfully because they have the right to claim asylum. So I think it's certainly been backward steps in the UK media over the last 4 or 5 years, changing that terminology from irregular to illegal.
And just as an overall assessment, Rosa, as we step back and just think about all of those different factors, Suella Braverman's intention to get the programme going by the summer, give us a percentage calculation on whether you think that might happen.
When I was a child, there was Mystic Meg who used to work on the lottery, and I don't think that she would be able to put a percentage onto this either. Look, it's very clear that similar schemes have happened before. For example, the scheme between Israel and Rwanda had not been successful. Of the thousands sent to Rwanda, only 9 remain that Rwanda know about. People sent to Rwanda under this scheme can leave. If they claim asylum in the country, then they can't then claim asylum in the UK, but there is nothing to stop them leaving and making their migration journeys all over again. Even if people were put on planes this summer, we saw that individuals can have lawful challenges, which happened with the last set of people being deported. We also know that unaccompanied minors will be protected from this scheme. Even if Suella Braverman manages to get a plane on the ground and people into it, I don't think it's likely, but I won't put a percentage on it, that anyone will be sent to Rwanda anytime soon.
All right, well, listen, your guidance always appreciated. Rosa Freedman, Professor of Law, Conflict and Global Development. Thank you.